Hey everybody, welcome to the Diabetes Empowerment Summit. I am your co-host, Danielle Hargenrader, and founder of the Summit, as well as founder of Diabetes Dominator Coaching and Love Yourself to Health monthly coaching membership. I'm bringing you another amazing guest. I'm going to read you her bio and we're going to get right into her story. So Jiggy is a speaker and mental performance coach helping competitive athletes, relentless entrepreneurs, and driven students increase the longevity of their performance and demand for excellence. Unlike many other motivational speakers, Jiggy brings awareness to the importance of mental health, burnout prevention, and self-compassion, which is why I'm so excited about this interview, just as deeply as she focuses on intense work ethic, perseverance, and self-discipline. Jiggy, thank you for taking the time out of your day to sit down and share with me, and then I can share with the audience. How are you? And welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I love when people read my intros. I'm like, yeah, that's like a good rap song. So I'm like, yeah, hype me up, hype me up.
I should have brought some music in, like to play you in. I totally agree. But it's a great bio, but it's also one of the reasons why I was so excited to reach out to you, because I have kind of known of you through the diabetes community. As those of us involved in the community, we know of a lot of people, but I've actually never had the chance to sit down and, pick your brain and really get to know you. So just very grateful. Shout out to Rodney Miller for connecting me with Jiggy, because he is amazing. But so yeah, let's start from the beginning. Obviously you live with type 1 diabetes as well. So let's start there. When did that lovely initiation into this club for you begin? And yeah, let's just start there, and then we'll talk about how that kind of relates to your vulnerability is dope and self-compassion.
Sure. If the story time is going to be afterwards, then I'll just say that I was diagnosed my freshman year of college. I just realized the other day that it was Pi Day. So March 14th, I just realized that, but it was 2011, and that's when I was diagnosed.
Okay. So in the relation to, which I believe is one of the most important ways or tools that we have available to us to manage our diabetes well, which is self-compassion, and I call it self-love or self-care. All of these things are kind of very heavily related. Did you already have that relationship with yourself, or your relationship to your knowledge of the incredible benefits of self-compassion practices before you were diagnosed, or was that something that you kind of began studying afterwards?
Not at all. Okay. I've actually never been asked this question this way. So that's why my eyes started getting big. I was like, oh,
good, that's what we're here for.
I was like, no, when I say no, I mean I was so far from it.
Okay.
I was so far from it. So yeah, the answer is hell no.
Okay. Well, then the next question organically is, how did you come upon the deep, what I would call a deep knowing? Because for me, it was a similar situation. I've had diabetes for 30 years almost. And for the first 15 plus, the idea of self-love, self-acceptance, self-worth, self-compassion as a daily practice was so foreign to me that it was just like, I would think that somebody was talking about it would be like, okay, that person's crazy, whatever. They don't know what they're talking about. Like literally that was my idea. And now I'm the complete opposite. How did you get to know what you know now about how important practicing self-compassion is to managing diabetes well?
Yeah, every time you talk about this stuff, I'm like, oh my God, we're exactly the same. My dad bought me The Power of Positivity or something like that, the book, when I was 10 years old. I've been pessimistic as I've been told I am since I was very young. And he got me that book, and I was like, I literally thought positivity was complete BS. I was like, I'm not pessimistic. I'm just being real about the realities of my life. I'm being true to myself. I'm not choosing to be pessimistic. I'm just reflecting off of what's going on in my life. And that is what it was. But background story, I guess, is that I didn't grow up at all with any sort of self-awareness or emotional intelligence. I grew up in Korea, and the culture itself doesn't really celebrate emotions and emotional awareness, experiencing emotions, exploring of emotions. Anything basically that has to do with emotions is kind of swept under the rug. Just kind of keep your mouth shut and only speak when you're spoken to kind of situation. And just like anybody in society, crying is kind of an odd thing. It's almost like a shameful thing. And yeah, I do have to bring honor to my family. And yeah, the stereotypes are true. I did have to bring A+ into the family. And especially because my family is super traditional. especially the way that my mother raised me, it was always about focusing on my studies. And like the most basic example of that is the day that I came out to her. I was like, hi, I'm bisexual. And she was like, that's what you think about instead of studying. And I'm like, I have an A+ average. What are you talking about? So that's basically an example of how Asian my upbringing is. But so I grew up like not knowing how to explore my own emotions. So if I were to be ever crying or if I'm frustrated, I would just get really angry. I would just lash out, start cursing, yelling, this and that and third. I was definitely the black sheep of the family. And of course, I grew up with depression. Of course, I grew up with anger issues. And so, you know, my parents or my family would look at me as like, oh, she's just being young. And she's just being selfish and whatever. But
meanwhile, you're just being human.
Yeah. And if I were to ever cry, it's more so like, oh, I'll just wait till she's done and then we can move forward. But no, there were also very little conversations as much as there were arguments. And so I also didn't know like nonviolent communication. I didn't know how to express myself. I didn't know how to be my authentic self. I didn't even know who I was. So the step one of, I think, I personally call it the self-work journey. And so that started when I took a gen ed class my freshman year in college. And I only took this class because I needed to up my GPA. And my counselor told me that this class has no exams. It doesn't have quizzes or pop quizzes, anything like that. It's based on assignments and attendance. So I said, okay, easy. And the background story to that is that right before my freshman year of college, I had to live alone in Queens, New York. I lived alone my senior year of high school. Some of the months of it, my mother survived a heart attack. And when I came to a point where I thought that I'd be able to take care of my mother, because I spent those months taking care of myself, I was like, I had full confidence to take care of my mother. She comes back from the hospital and we had a 5-alarm fire in the apartment building. So we lost everything. And we lost everything in 1 hour. And basically I was without a home since. I don't call it homelessness because that's a different level of respect. But yeah, I was basically without a home. I didn't have a parent living every single year. And so after that, I've had to live in a couple of shelters. I've lived in a Days Inn. They moved us to like a studio apartment in Brooklyn. And when I say Brooklyn, I'm talking about Brooklyn. I'm not talking about the gentrified Starbucks Brooklyn. So that stay home. I couldn't go out because I didn't want to go out, because if I go out in Brooklyn, I mean, things could happen. Yeah, so like that was my last summer before I went away for college, and like I couldn't see my friends, and so I was, that further depressed. That created further depression. And then it's like I didn't process that as a traumatic experience. To me, it was experience. To me, like it just life happening, but I didn't process it as trauma. I didn't even know the word trauma. So it's not like I was like, oh, I should see a therapist. Oh, I should start meditating and I should start journaling about this. Like I didn't have Oprah then, So I just like went about life how I usually went about life. And so when I went to college, I started just crying out of nowhere a lot. And thankfully I met really great friends who told me like, you're not alone in this, we're here for you. But that's what made freshman year of college so interesting, like me going into college so interesting, is because I never really had like a clean story the entire time I was in college. So I was never really fully present when I was there. And so I guess I started my healing process without realizing that's what I was trying to do or trying to accomplish, because to me, there was nothing to heal. To me, I'm just, oh, I cry a lot. To me, that's kind of what it is. Oh, I get angry really quickly. That's just how it is to me. And so once I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, that happened because all of a sudden I started getting really thirsty. I was going to the bathroom a lot. My skin was so dry no matter how much lotion I was putting on. Of course, it's out of nowhere. Like, I didn't expect this to happen. So
yeah,
I got tested. It came positive, and the doctor comes into the office with the results, and he's like, yep, you have a sugar problem. So I said, I was like, okay, but I need you to tell me
like,
what
could you
it
be
is.
A little bit more specific?
Yeah, exactly.
Like...
What is a sugar problem? So he said that you have type 1 diabetes. And at the time, what I knew about diabetes is what society tells me what diabetes is.
Yes.
So I'm kind of like, how is this possible? I've been an athlete all of my life. I thought I was eating really well. Like, to me, my understanding of diabetes was what TV tells me.
Yes.
And so he kind of basically explained to me the 101 version of, like, the 5-minute version of the difference between type 1 and type 2. And then what he said was basically this was inevitable. And he told me that I would have been diagnosed with type 1. It's not a fault of my own, and it would have happened no matter what.
Okay.
And so I called my mother, and right there in the office, I called my mom, and I told her that I did test positive for type 1 diabetes. She starts screaming at me. And so then, even if I explain to her I have type 1, not type 2, I'm understanding there's the difference there. What he's telling me is that it's not something that I did, but it just would have happened either way. But her concerns were more so, how are we going to pay for your hospital bills? How are we going to pay for your medical bills? How are we going to pay for your supplies? How are we going to figure out this whole insurance? Because I also wasn't even, I'm not a citizen. I'm not a U.S. citizen. So I also had to go about understanding health insurance. And I figured all of that out myself when I was 18 years old. I woke up early at 6, 7 a.m. to call the health insurance. I was the next caller in line. Like, I didn't have mommy and daddy doing that for me. I didn't have mommy and daddy making doctor's appointments for me. And at that point, my entire journey just started off on my own. And so it's 2011. Instagram wasn't really a thing. Facebook was sort of barely a thing. But still, I didn't know there was a community of diabetics out there. I didn't know that.
Sure.
And I went to Penn State. It's like, I barely see any other people other than who are white. So how am I going to somehow see a diabetic walking across the campus? I'm not. So I just started to feel completely alone. And of course, one of the first questions that the educator/nurse asked me was, how are you feeling? And I said, I'm having this question, why me? Mm-hmm. And that was my diagnosis. But so after I was diagnosed with diabetes, I go home for summer break, and that's when I find out that my mom was diagnosed with cancer. So
not to interrupt, but just to say, my mom also has cancer. So I'm pretty sure just every single thing about us. The more I learn about you, I'm like, are we the same person? Because this is really odd. But continue.
Okay. Wait a minute. So that happens, and then I go back to school. And on top of that, I also experienced a little bit of racism and homophobia at Penn State too. So, but to me, like, I'm used to it by then. Again, it's like,
doesn't make it acceptable.
Exactly. Okay, exactly. But this is like the example. It's like, of course, again, I'm like, oh, it's life.
But you had already taken that class, though, right? You had taken that initial class.
Right.
So you had some awareness. No, just to kind of quickly touch back on something that you said.
Yeah.
With that small bit of information that you had kind of taken in about the journaling, about the meditation, about the reflection, mm-hmm. Were you aware in some capacity that diabetes diagnosis was indeed a major trauma at that point? Or
no,
not yet?
That class was also just the beginning. So I don't believe that people are able to come to complete self-awareness with one semester.
I agree. I agree.
That's 3 months. Yeah. That's 3 months. Self-work is forever.
Sure. 100%.
But the one thing that class taught me was, the only thing that class taught me during the semester was, why am I dating so many girls?
Okay, well, that's important to know.
I'm not the type to date around or sleep around. I'm more so the type to be in committed relationships. But for example, my senior year of high school, I was in 3 relationships in 1 year, and there's a word for that. It starts with an H and it has 3 letters. But
I don't think so. I will respectfully disagree. I have a very different outlook on sexual wellness, and I've spoken on it publicly multiple times. I just think that every person, again, I think it involves a lot of self-awareness.
Yeah.
Know what you want and you're comfortable with who you are. I think that's a huge part of the patriarchal problem, that men can be like, oh, I'm going to go have this relationship with as many people I want and you're a stud. But women can go around and want to do that and feel part of I think sex is a form of communication. I'm 100%. This isn't just I've studied it deeply and for many years. And so I just think that that's part. I'll just say straight out, I don't think if you have 3 relationships that you're a hoe. But I understand that is what, unfortunately, for what I think is unfortunate, that most people do think that. And I think that, I think there's tons of levels to it. I know we're kind of getting off on a tangent, but I think if the person involved in it is aware of what they're doing and why they're doing it, and it's not to like fill a void that they're not filling by caring for themselves, and they're just happen to like to communicate that way, I would like to just encourage that is okay for health, and that is my opinion. But I digress.
But I think it's because that's not what happened.
And that's not why you were doing it.
Right. So the class helped me realize why I was doing it, though.
Right. Yeah.
In which case, then, I might understand now. So the class made me realize that the reason why I just need love from somebody, basically, it's because I was lacking love from my mother. And so when people say they have from then on, I even made a New Year's resolution to stay single and commit to, I said, the only relationship that I'm going to work on with the female is with my mother. And then I didn't date, and that's what really helped me. But yeah, that's the one thing that I really learned from that class. It was the biggest thing to back during that semester. And I didn't even realize that diabetes would really affect my life that much until my sophomore year. So now I'm reaching the 1 year mark of me having diabetes. And the thing about that is that I was MDI. I didn't get on a pump or anything right away. I was MDI. And when you're MDI, or no, even when you have a pump, when you just kind of like find a site, you put it on, and there's that sting. Or if you prick your finger and there's a sting, or you are putting the needle inside you and you hit a bad spot and there's that sting. Well, that sting always really made me mad. It always really, it hurt and you get used to it, but it was unknown to me. And so, when life gets overwhelming and something is really annoying, I just kind of exploded and I couldn't take it anymore. And the story that I only recently started telling and sharing, I only started sharing this part of the story last year, is that I attempted suicide with using my diabetes supplies in my dorm room my sophomore year. The whole reason why I didn't talk about it for this long is another story. But even that didn't make me realize that, I need help. Like, not even that helped me realize that I need help. And, well, Jiggy, what happened? Like, how are you still alive? Like, what happened? Well, I don't know. I don't actually remember.
Okay.
I blacked out. But
you're here, and you're meant to be here.
Grace of God, and I don't think I need to explain a story that I don't really feel like explaining.
Absolutely not.
But yeah, that's just how unaware I was about mental health. Not even that made me realize that I need help. And because I didn't tell anybody, no one else knows that they should get some help from me. And especially because even that is frowned upon in the Korean culture. So I'm not going to tell my family what happened. And my dad's in Korea. I'm a late born. He's old. I'm not going to concern my dad about that in Korea. So, and I have no support in terms of diabetes or me being gay in the family. So I didn't know who to go to. And again, my mom had a heart attack, she had cancer, I didn't want to worry her either. There was just a lot going on in the family already. So I didn't want to be a burden. And that's why it took me this long to share this story. And the only reason why I actually only just started to tell the story is because late last year, I saw somebody on a Facebook group, a diabetes Facebook group, where she shared a story about her husband the night before attempted suicide using his support. Oh, it's not me. And if it's not just me, it can't be just them either. Right. This has got to be something. And this isn't, what's weird to me is that I didn't see this from a movie. I didn't like get the idea of using my supplies from a movie or anything. But sometimes when you get to that place, you look at your supplies and you wonder, and you think that, okay, our supplies can either help us live or help us die. And this is when I was like, oh, mental health and diabetes community like needs to be talked about ASAP.
Right. So then there was like, that was kind of like an aha moment sort of for you when you saw that other person's story. Because I kind of think you said a lot of things. I like to just touch on really quickly that mentality that I think a lot of people with diabetes, I would almost say all of them, although I don't believe in blanket statements, we've all felt like a burden to the people that love us at some point in our lives because we have an organ that does not function properly. Therefore, we need exogenous insulin. Therefore, we need money. Therefore, we need time. Therefore, we need attention more so than most other people. So I think that that's a pervasive belief that we all sometimes internalize so deeply and so like just rigidly that there's no, almost like it's like a wall that we build up around. There's no way I couldn't be a burden. Like, so that becomes this narrative. And I think that you said it, I've felt that way. I think everybody I've ever interviewed has felt that way at some point. So I think one of the things I always like to encourage is to kind of take a look at that belief. And I always say, use like the best friend analogy is like, if your best friend would be telling you this stuff, would you tell them they were a burden? And I've never ever once had someone say the answer is yes. It's like, you deserve as much consideration as the other person. It's not like you're doing this on purpose. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that because you said it, and it's so connected. And then the peer support, whether it's with suicide or whether with just living with diabetes and having a low in the middle of the night, when you go online and you see someone else talking about that exact same experience, you could talk about it all day, but the physiological shift that occurs inside of you at that moment is indescribable. You have to experience, and that's why I'm such a big proponent of peer support or listening, just lurking. You don't even have to interact. You could just lurk and read through. That's okay. That's the first step in being involved in the community. You have to lurk first. Unless you're just really outgoing, which I think most of us probably aren't naturally that way. But I'm really glad you did that. And so that was a moment. Did you decide in that moment that, hey, I'm going to start focusing or bringing more attention to the mental health aspect of living with diabetes, or kind of how did that unfold from that point on to where you are now, where you're talking about it all over the place and it's become your career and you're wonderful to listen to about it. So how did that all occur?
So I was actually, I guess, like going off of course right there, but this didn't happen actually until last year. So that's that. But to just go back to, I guess, like my sophomore year of college, but that was actually the moment that I took a moment to myself and I said, slowly but surely, I started to say like, well, seeing my mother having cancer helped me realize that I really do have only one life. And so I have this disease that they're telling me there's no cure for it. I can't hate it. I hated it. I resented it because every time that sting, every time it stung, it reminded me my life was so shitty. That's what led me to a point of suicide. Like every time I pricked my finger, every time I injected, every time I felt that sting, especially in the beginning stages, you feel that sting like every single time. But that was like, oh, I hate my life. Oh, my life is shit. Oh, like my parents don't accept me, or my family doesn't accept me, or like, oh, I had a really hard upbringing, or this and that and third. And I'm not saying I'm having a victim mentality. I'm just telling you a story about my life.
No, you're just saying what your experience was. And look, if you add physical pain to emotional pain, it amplifies it. I mean, that's human, I think, also. So,
So that's when I was like, I have to make the effort to basically, so cheesy, but become best friends with my diabetes. I have to love and embrace my diabetes. And so however that looked like, I think for me, the very first endocrinologist I ever had, she was excellent. She was so friendly, so empathetic. So she was great. So she really helped me throughout my time in college, just kind of like walked by me and helped me walk through it. My friends were as supportive as they could be. And I started to try to understand the work is because I still didn't have social media community to ask questions to, because I didn't know that it existed, if it did exist at that time. But I think at the time it was more so about self-talk. And then come senior year, my mother passes away, and I still went back to school. And it was like the day of my mom's funeral. I went to the funeral. I went out for lunch. I got back on the mega bus, went back to school. And my professors were like, I can't believe you're here. And I'm like, of course I'm here. I'm Asian. Like, not going back to school was just not even on my mind. And to me, the best way to honor my mother was to graduate from college. So that's what I did. And by that time, I understood the importance of vulnerability and compassion for others, because that course that was a gen ed, I never switched majors, but I actually became a TA for that class, and then I became a lecture assistant for that class. So it wasn't even my major. And I was so obsessed with whatever this self-work thing was, self-awareness and emotional intelligence thing was, nonviolent communication, creating space and holding space for others to tell their truth.
I love how you talk about it like it's such a
Let me just
thing.
rap for you, Danielle. Like, truth speaking, I actually had to study Brene Brown's work. Deepak Chopra, like, who listens to Deepak in college? I'm not like.
Oh, I wasn't doing it in college. I waited. I was like, didn't start till my late 20s. I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But yeah, like, my friends and I were doing like screening parties with this film called Finding Joe, where, if you don't know, it's free for streaming on YouTube right now. It's about finding purpose, basically. And you will
Joe, J-O-E,
Finding Joe.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's basically about finding your own identity, and your own hero's journey, basically. Yeah. And you will never see a film where there's both Deepak Chopra and, oh my God, why is her name Rashida Jones? Oh. You will never see a film out there that has both Deepak Chopra and Rashida Jones. But this one, and Tony Hawk. So this movie has it. Okay. But yeah, I just started to really love this stuff. Doing the work, if you know what that is, like the self-talk work, and not putting guilt and shame into just change majors. But yeah, really just started to explore that even after college. I wasn't in a space to go to grad school or anything at the time. I also don't believe that you should put 17 and 18-year-olds in a huge institution.
I agree.
And then tell them to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their life.
I agree.
And then put them in lifelong debt.
Girl.
Because I just figured out what I want to do, and I'm 27.
How old are you now? Wait, say again.
27.
Okay, I figured it out when I was just about to turn 26. So I feel like there's something there also with the age. Like, I agree. At 18 years old, you have no idea who you are as a person, let alone how you want to express your God-given gifts to the world and serve in a way that can earn you an income so you can best serve with your gifts for the rest of your life. It's like that, to me, we don't even have time to get into how backward all of the systems in this country, and not just this country, mostly everywhere are. But yes, 100% I agree. I want to talk a little bit though about the actual actionable daily practices. Like, I know you mentioned meditation. I know you mentioned journaling, which are two, I actually have this is my basement, but in my living room, there's like a white erase chalk, dry erase board that says how to keep your connection clear. And what I mean is my connection to the source, whatever that is for anyone. I don't name it because it's to be named by whomever is whatever, but it's meditation, it's journaling, it's grounding and earthing, it's praying, it's mantras, it's affirmations, and I have like a whole laundry list of things just in case I ever forget, how many options I have available to me for free at all times to connect to my source in my living room, directly in my face every single day. Are those practices also things that you do, or do you have any other ones like that you're like, hey, I can't go a day without this practice of self-care or self-compassion, because I know without it, I'm not going to be able to function as well as I know I can with it?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, because I believe that emotional consistency is something that's very important to me, because I'm an empath, because the career path that I chose is to constantly be there for others. And so I've realized the very importance of putting myself first at the beginning of the day and start the day taking care of myself first. And these are things that I know that I probably won't perform as well at a high level if I don't do these things. And I know so because through the pandemic, it's up and down, and I'm human too, so I've had my own roller coasters too. And I recently started working with a therapist, but that's another thing. I didn't see a therapist. Oh my gosh, so much to my self-awareness story, but basically I didn't see a therapist until just recently. Yeah. So, so I am very strong in my Christian faith. So I do read the Bible, I pray, I worship, I like put my hands up in the air and worship. I'm one of those Christians.
Hey man.
So pray. Let me just walk through it in my head. Yeah, I have to meditate first. And plug for Headspace. I think Calm is doing it too, but if anybody needs a resource to meditate, Headspace is offering free meditation right now.
And also there's a really great app called Insight Timer that is free always. Yes. And it's a huge, it's a lot to go through, but it's really, you can filter through like what you're looking for, which I love.
Yeah.
And also speaking of Deepak Chopra and Oprah, they offer free meditation series like here and there. So if you sign up for their emails, like you'll get like random 21-day meditation series for free here and there throughout the year. So plugging meditation, 100%.
Yeah. An older like guru voice to guide my meditations rather than like the Headspace guy who's like he's from like the UK or something like that, and the accent just makes me laugh. But anyway,
wait, I just want to say one thing about that too really quick, because it's important. Because when I first started with meditation, I was like most people where I was like, this is not for me. I can't keep my mind quiet. I can't stop my thoughts, right? Which is not the point of meditation, but I think we are kind of conditioned to think so. It's kind of like anything. There are so many varieties of out there. So if you go through one guided meditation and you're like, nah, I'm not feeling this, go through 20 more before you decide that it's not for you, because it's probably just the person's vibe that's guiding you. Maybe that's not connecting with your energy, but you'll find someone's who is. Like, you gotta just keep trying, because there's so many.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk to just for the beginners. There's like male voices, female voices, no background music. There is background music. The length of the meditation. It's okay if it's 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
At least it's 5 minutes to yourself, for yourself. So so meditation, prayer, reading my Bible, worship, and then working out. It's like kind of it's one of those things where it's like the one time my girlfriend and I can spend time together. So we work out together in the morning in the garage right now, because we can't go to the gym, but we're training in the garage.
You see my gym is right back. You see my treadmill, right?
Yeah. I noticed that too. And from there, just making sure that I like have my breakfast, whatever that might look like, because right now I don't have a very good appetite. So I'm just making sure that I have like a smoothie at least or something like that. I used to drink coffee, but I don't drink coffee in the morning anymore because I'm experiencing some anxiety in the morning. So trying to steer away from that unless I have to get ready for an interview. But right here. But yeah, that's per journaling. I believe in adjusting and adapting. And I believe in using my self-awareness as an indicator to knowing what I need and what will serve me at the time. So that means that my morning routine, or whatever my routine might look like, what works for me then might not work for me now, and that's okay.
Such an important point. Yeah.
Because being able to adjust and adapt is a skill within itself. And adapting and adjusting is like the story of my life anyway. So I believe in my self-awareness guiding me, and that has a lot to do with self-compassion as well. So
can I just say one other thing, or ask you, about the adaptability, because I think what you said about the morning routine that's serving you now may not be serving in the future, which I could not agree with more. But can we also say that your diabetes care routine that you have right now may not be the same diabetes care routine that's going to work for you tomorrow or the day after, and that adjusting and adapting to that is one of the highest keys of like acceptance, that you cannot always have the same thing, just like write it in a book, close the book and be like, that's how I manage my diabetes. That's not how diabetes works. And just want to see if you agree with that, because I feel
absolutely
like,
it happened to me. And when like back in March when this whole thing started and they said stay at home orders, to me I was like, oh whatever, I'm always home already anyway, I work from home. And so I thought I wasn't stressed, like I thought I wasn't affected, but my blood sugar told me otherwise. And I'm like, why is my blood sugar so high?
Same experience.
And so I'm like, I didn't change anything, like I don't need to adjust my diet. I'm one of those people, I have like a bodybuilding background, so like I can eat dry chicken and broccoli and white rice if I have to and not be tired of it. So I can eat the same thing and not be tired of it. I didn't change what I'm eating. Why is my blood sugar so high all of a sudden? And then my endocrinologist, my A1C went up a whole point. And then my endocrinologist was like, let's adjust your basal and your bolus and your ratio. So I'm still MDI and I have to prick my finger and stuff. And so all the numbers went high. Like I have to take more insulin and I have to take more long acting insulin. And I have this weird stigma. It's my own. I have it though. Maybe somebody else out there has it too. But when a dosage has to go up, I have this shame saying that I'm not taking care of my diabetes well enough.
I'm certain you're not the only person with has that thought.
Yeah. So I went through that little like short spurt of a phase, but my friend told me, like, talked me out of it. She was like, Jiggy, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. You recently had to move to LA. Like there was a shift in your career. Like so much is happening right now. I was also having like home, like relationship issues and this and that and third, like so much drama everywhere. So she was like, this doesn't have anything to do with how you take care of your diabetes. This is just a necessary step. This is the necessary adjustment it takes for you to take care of your diabetes.
Thank you, Jiggy's friend.
Shout out to Lucy. So I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. So she's actually the only person I go to every time I leave an endocrinology appointment because she does this so well.
Good.
So I was like, okay, yeah, but yeah, just like you said, diabetes, really the example in our faces that exemplifies the importance of self-compassion.
Yes.
Whatever that might look like, because it's not diabetes. It's with us throughout life, and I don't know about anybody else, but life has never been consistent for me. So I'm constantly having to adjust and adapt. So yeah, when it comes to self-care routines, whatever that routine might look like, I think the skills of being able to adjust and adapt are really important. And self-compassion has a whole stigma to it. I've been doing so many presentations during the month of May for Mental Health Awareness Week to talk about the stigmas of self-compassion. Don't at me. I'm always ready for a rap battle. So yeah, so I used to journal in terms of like, future self-journaling, because when you have your own business or you are a grinder and anti 9-to-5 club, the team no sleep, you got to want it badly enough. You got to think about the future. Yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with that. But future self-journaling has done great for me. But I'm realizing that during a global pandemic, I don't even know what's happening tomorrow.
Exactly.
So I kept pushing and pushing and pushing for the future self. But then I was like, oh my God, this is something that's literally just out of my control right now. So whatever I can control in the moment, let me just focus on that. So I actually stopped future self-journaling, which has calmed my anxiety a lot.
Good.
I actually don't journal unless it's for therapy, unless it's for reflection or something comes up and I want to explore more about it. Unless it's to share with my therapist, I don't journal at this point. I only take notes on my Bible studying that I'm doing. But in terms of journaling, that's where I'm at right now. I'm sure I'll pick up future self-journaling in the future, but I'm not going to hate myself if I don't.
Yeah.
But it's great if you want to try it, somebody out there. But yeah.
The future thing right now, I think, is really difficult. And I've actually, I lead a group that has 40-ish people in it. And through this pandemic, everybody was like freaking out. And, you know, because we all don't know what's happening. And one of the kind of group think kind of conclusions that we came to together was that, like, taking this one day at a time is the best thing, all of us. And we're all from different backgrounds and ethnicities and ages and all of it. But we kind of, through lots of talk and lots of collaborative, you know, brainstorming, we've realized that one day at a time is all we can do. And to do more than that right now can feel really unhealthy, even though at other points in time where there's not a global pandemic, it can be helpful to look 5 years into the future. But right now it feels stifling. Right now it feels impossible. So being adaptable with your journaling is the same way that I use it as kind of, I use the analogy of, like, I use the journal each day to, like, it's like the windshield wiper to my brain. Like every day I, like, go through life and, like, bugs and stuff smashes and it's dirty. And then I wake up in the morning and sometimes I'm just like, I'm going to do Zumba and I love my cat and my husband's awesome. And then something profound may fall out of my brain, or something not at all profound. And then there's no grammar or, you know, proper, it doesn't matter if any, it's like, it's all just for me to, like, whoosh, 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 so I can interact with the day in a more clear way. So I think, again, it's important because you need to adapt journaling to what it needs to be for you every day. There's no one way to do it right, just like diabetes management. So I think there's so many parallels there, but yeah,
what you said about one step at a time. So the one thing that I've been saying, I'm going to trademark it, is one best at a time. And what that means is that your best today might look different than your best yesterday or 5 years ago or your best tomorrow. And that's okay. In that, like, the reason why, I mean, okay, like, I'm an athlete, and also my clients are high performers or competitive athletes. So I have to say, do your best, like, all the time. But basically also, like, a lot of people want to be able to reflect on their day and be able to say, I gave it my best and I gave it my all. But the thing is that your best today can look like, and it's okay, your best today can look like just getting out of bed.
Yep.
And that alone during the global pandemic, I myself, it's been hard.
Yep.
Let's also acknowledge the times. And so whatever your best look like, whether one day you get out of bed and that's it, job. And if your best the next day is closing a client or leading a meeting or you get promoted or something like that, like, that's great too. But as long as you just do your best, whatever that best may look like for that day, I just think that everybody should be celebrated no matter what the effort. So
I agree.
Yeah, so that's something that I wanted to share.
Yeah, no, beautiful. So we've been talking for a while now, and I say this, and I mean it to everyone, but I mean, I feel like you and I have even more to talk about, and maybe I'll interview you again at another time in the future. But for folks out there, you know, who want to know more from you, whatever links Jiggy has given me will be directly under this, you know, her website, and, you know, hire her to speak. And clearly she has a lot to offer. But just in general, you know, what would be, I think I like to ask different questions at the end. Like, what would you say to Jiggy, who just got diagnosed, right now, if you could tell her one thing?
Am I still a freshman in college?
Well, I guess so, if that's what that, yep. So whoever that was.
Giving advice to type 1, I will say, oh, dude, this is about to give you so many opportunities and you're about to meet so many dope people. And I will also say this will be one way where God will totally show you that he loves you and wants to take care of you. Like, I literally would not be alive without the community because of, you think that I can survive on my own at like 18 years old with the health insurance that I don't even understand. And like when they tell me I can't have certain kind of medicine, I don't know why. Like, I don't understand. English is also not my first language. So like, this was all hard to understand, but throughout time, there have been so many people, literally strangers I've never met, just donate supplies to me. And I, like, throughout the years. And so, yeah, that's one thing that I always say about our community is, like, I really would not be here without our community and the compassion and the empathy of our community and the willingness to help each other in our community. Like, I really just believe that this is just the most obvious example of God. And so somebody who's not from here, somebody whose dad is in Korea, somebody whose mom's passed away, somebody whose brother lives in Michigan, of all places. I've lived in Michigan, not a fan, but yeah, like I'm a nomad. I've moved every single year since I was 17 years old. I know what it feels like to be not have a home, a place to call home. So like the one thing that's been consistent is like the community that surrounds me. And literally like so many crazy things have happened in my life because those were the moments that I had to lean on God. Miracles would not be possible. So yeah, I think that it would be very weird that God would give me a chronic illness with no cure for the rest of my life to show me that I'm taken care of.
I like that interpretation. I'm a big fan, and I believe, I'll just say what I believe, and I said this in my co-host is an amazing dynamic human being, Kiana, shout out to Kiana. She asked me when she interviewed me, what do I know? Because she has to ask me these deep questions, and I said, I know that everything that happens is a miracle. Everything. That's literally how I approach my life. So whether you can categorize it as good or categorize it as bad, life is an existing miracle. So if we that's how we interact with it. And I'll just follow that up with, that's not how I always was. This was a choice. This was a choice and a journey, and that I'll always be on. But it totally changed every aspect of my entire life for the better, including my relationship with diabetes. Yeah. Do
you ever look back and then you're like, I can't believe I'm being that person who's saying this now?
All the time. All the time.
I'm like, I can't even believe I talk this way about God now, because I used to hate God.
And then for me, I used to be, and so I'm actually really glad we can have this open conversation. I'm not religious at all. I'm actually like, in some aspects, against religion, but not, because I find it to be divisive. But I also used to be a self-proclaimed atheist, right? But now, to me, I always say nature is my church. Like, I could just, like I have like rocks, I like literally find rocks out on the ground. I'm like, look at this amazing thing. Look how shiny this is. I'll bring it into my house, and now it sits on my computer desk. Like, I will hold rocks. I will just stand in the ground. Like, I can feel the deepest spiritual connection to all source of all that is by just holding a rock in my hands. And I know if I would have said that to myself 15 years ago, I would have been like, are she on drugs? Like, is she clearly there's something wrong with her mentally. But now it's just growth, and that's just how I am. And I just think I don't care how anybody else finds that connection. It's not how you do it, it's that you do it. Right? Like,
no, I hear you. I hate like organized religion. Like, I've been hurt by the church. A Christian church has denied my baptism because I was gay.
Yeah, I'm not into that.
And that's like basically telling me like, oh, it's personal now, because my relationship with God is personal, because that's the only way that I believe can be connected to my mom, because she was such a heavy Catholic. And like, I grew up Catholic, and I hate Catholicism, but like, I found Jesus and God in a Christian church. But when I went through the concept of the meditation and things like that, and the class also made me go around the campus and hug trees. And
I hug trees all the time.
Yeah.
Like, every day.
Tree huggers. Yeah. So like, to understand that God is universe everywhere. And like universe is God, and like, I have a guava tree here now, and like, I believe this tree is God. Like, I can literally feel a presence with this freaking tree. It's very weird.
Feel the same way with flowers, with like a blade of grass. Like, I'm same.
So it's all about relationship than just, okay, some people can go to just church every Sunday, and then they think that they're good like Christian or something. I'm just like,
It's not for me to judge. All I say, here are my 2 rules about God. God is love, and all you need to do to have God's love, whatever that is to exist. No more discussion. I don't need to have there's no more words that need to be added to that. That's period. End of discussion for me. That's me and my belief. So however that manifests for you, I can say that it's worth exploring and not feeling like you need to confine yourself into any one construct of how that looks, because it's up to you to figure that out. So Yeah, we're getting.
There's some Christians out there who are like, oh, meditating is like antichrist, and I'm like, what?
Right. So just like you mind other people's opinions about how you should manage your diabetes, you can mind other people's opinions about how you should connect with your source, whatever that is. It's kind of the same thing. But I think at the end of it, and this is a perfect kind of bringing it to a close, for any of that to happen, you have to become vulnerable.
Yeah.
You have to open yourself up to all of the things, and some of them hurt, but some of them feel amazing. And you have, it's duality. You have to have both. And yeah. So any other final words before we close this off that you want to say to the people out there watching? Any wisdom or anything, really?
Vulnerability is dope. Compassion is always the right answer. Black Lives Matter, and that's it.
Boom. Like, if she had
and take care of your mental health.
Yes. Okay. I'm not even going to say anything after that. Jiggy, I don't know you. I love you. I look forward to the day that I get to meet you in person and there's no COVID and we can hug. And thank you for taking the time to share your truth and your authenticity with me, with the people out there watching. If you want to know more about Jiggy, just scroll down, click below, and stay tuned for more amazing interviews. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, Jiggy.